Okay, so let's start with the TPS part. So we have our FPS part, which is of course what we're already using. So let's drag and drop this guy underneath and let's reset it. So the thing is, with TPS, we actually want to be getting a shadow, so we want to be seeing it, and we actually want to be getting some real shadows as well. So I think we could just, yeah, reduce normal bias and we see, but of course we don't want to be seeing his face like that. So let's create an empty object which we're going to call TPS parts, and let's drop this one in here. Then the same way we have an FPS handler, we're going to create a TPS handler which is going to be responsible for spawning and handling all the weapons on the TPS part of our object, of our game. Okay, let's add the namespaces. FPS handler, I think we're doing a tick. Yeah, we're doing a tick, so we're actually going to do the same thing over here as well. So we're taking this. Now, all I think I need to be used, well, for now, all I need to do is have a reference to my TPS animator. Everything else I can get from my controller, and I also need to know where to spawn my weapons. Awesome. So since we are using FPS handler and we are using the equip already, load weapon and equip weapon, so load weapon needs to do the same thing as the created weapon. Needs to do the same thing from the FPS handler perspective to the TPS handler. So we'll do exactly the same thing without the weapon index. Okay, and we'll do it here. So, but one difference is we can now have a TPS prefab and an FPS prefab, in case you want to be using different elements. In my case, because I don't have a different model either way, I'm just going to be using the same prefab. Okay, so that will mean on AR rifle I'll just assign the same things from one place and the other one. So on the TPS part, we can assign the FPS handler, or we can assign the TPS handler actually right away. Yeah, okay. Then we can drag and drop the animator, and we can also drag and drop the hand, well, his right hand anyway, or we could just drop an empty game object underneath here, which is going to be the weapon holder, like so. Okay, just to make sure what we're using. Then on the controller we have our FPS handler, so we're also going to be using TPS handler. Then on start we also want to use an init method for the TPS handler, so let's go and assign that. And we also need to know if this character is a local character or not. Okay, so I'm just going to assign public bool is local, and I'm going to set it to true because we only have one character anyway right now. So we're not instancing the weapons because we're using the FPS handler. Okay, so the FPS handler is kind of doing it, it's kind of cheating. So okay, let me see. This now needs to be going through this. So we'll do public void equipped weapon, and it's going to be doing FPS handler equip weapon I, and load weapon is going to be doing same thing for this guy. So load weapon item and equip weapon. When we load the weapon, then we're going to be going FPS handler dot load weapon W, TPS handler load weapon W, FPS handler equip weapon, TPS handler equip weapon, and pass the index. Let's create the instance for this. Okay, now FPS handler, you only need to worry about if you're local. If it's not a local object, then we're not really using it, so you know, no need to be seeing it. Which means instance weapon, we are not using it anymore, and I think we could just use the FPS handler to manage the index. So let's make this public void, and we can delete this. And okay, so load weapon, we have the created weapons, so we're going to want to keep a reference to the current weapon. Current weapon, then equip weapon if current weapon equals null or not equals null. Current weapon game object set active false, otherwise current weapon equals created weapons I current weapon game object set active to true. So on init, I'm actually going to do public bool debug FPS or debug local, because if the controller, or so if this is the local controller, we want to get every renderer that exists, or let's do a method void update renderers. Let's do public void, which then it's going to be searching for every renderer underneath our game object. So let's maybe do mesh renderers, and let's do get component children, get components children renderer. Then for each in mesh renderers, we're going to do shadow casting mode, shadows only. So it's going to be only using it to cast shadows and nothing else. Okay, unless we tell it to debug local, which means update renderers. Yeah. If debug local, then return. Okay, so every time we equipped or create a new weapon now, we need to actually update the renderers, so it updates every new one. So how this should look then? We have all of that. I think if we just hit play, it should work. It didn't, because what are we missing? We're missing the TPS handler, which we should have been assigning it, no? Yeah, we don't assign it, that's why. Okay. Okay, and you can see that we get a weapon we get a shadow on our model, which will then later play animations on it. And I think we are, well, the weapon is all over the place, but let's fix this. So what I want to do first is say debug local, so I don't get the shadow, I get the full model. Okay, and then I can go over here, and since I know my weapon holder is at the ground position, for me, because I'm using the same object as my FPS part, I basically want to move only the weapon holder instead of moving the actual weapon. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the correct position right now, because we are going to be replacing this with, well, we're going to have to fix it again with proper animations once we get those. So I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to keep it like this and then paste it again. Come on. Once we start, and then if we untick debug log, yeah, I almost had the power surge, and we can see that it is looking correctly, at least on his hands. So if he's not a local, so if he's a client, then that means we want to be seeing it, so it will look something like this, for example. And this will also be helpful for debugging what the other players see, or for debugging to see what we sync over the network, so how it will look. We will keep him over there, and we're going to be doing a few other things. Awesome. So that's actually mostly it for this part, but let's also add the tick. So our controller will be responsible for ticking everything. Okay, so yeah, we don't have the animations for it, so I don't think we need to worry about loading the TPS animator right now. Okay. Awesome. So the other thing, however, we can do is we could be checking that, you know, if you're not local, don't really tick the FPS handler. And basically, if you're not local, you don't want to be ticking any of this. Or actually, if you're local, you want to be ticking this, and then TPS handler, all of that. Okay, so tick is actually your animations. Okay, and init. So yeah, I think that's it for this part, because we need to find some animations to place. You can also maybe maybe you can actually close this guy as well, and let's add a reference to that game object. This animator, weapon holder, public game object, created model, just in case you want to have skins, which I'm sure you do, and create model. For now, I'm going to say set active to true, and later on we're going to worry about adding the skins, which is going to be really similar to what we did with the item, with the weapons. Okay, and you can see that it's actually not changing the weapons because we are using it from the FPS handler. We're doing the equip, okay, which is wrong, because it should be from the controller. So it's not encapsulated call, it's going upwards on the controller, and it updates the controller, not the reference it has right now. Okay, let's see. Oh, the 3 is because we don't have. Okay, I see. Equip weapon. We need to be checking the index first of all. So let's make a call, which we will do. Public bool is valid index. Integer index. Then current weapon return false. Return false. We need to delete this, and we also need this. Return false. Return true. These are all the cases that the index could be valid, and since we are doing that check, we don't really need this anymore because we're going to be just calling this from the controller itself. So if FPS handler is valid index I, then load the index. Probably we could store the current weapons we have on the inventory. That could be, not probably, that should probably be the correct way to do this, but yeah, you see that it changes the weapon, it equips and unequips, and if it's not a valid index, if you press 3 for example, or the same one, it doesn't do anything. Yeah, so I think it's kind of a mixed bag if we, because we actually want to be updating the FPS part on the client as well, because we want to have replays, and for the replays of course we will need all that as well. And you can see that I'm actually firing while rotating, while equipping. So to avoid that in the future, we need to know if we are interacting. So we have the fake interactions somewhere, which is, I think it's in tick, is interacting, debug interaction timer, I think. Let's see, it goes to which is setting this on reloading. So for now we could just take we can take either this, or we can do this right onto the animator itself, which it will say is interacting, and while you're in idle, let's make a new method, that a new script that is going to be handling our booleans. We have written this script before, not going to be something new, something fancy. Let's delete these two, and let's uncomment these two and these two. Okay, we don't need this, don't need this either. Then we need the public class bool holder. Then we need public string target bool, public bool status, public bool is set on exit. This need to be system.serializable, and we need a bool holder array. Then booleans count length, and animator set bool booleans I dot target bool booleans I dot status, and on exit if booleans I dot is set on exit, just make it opposite. Okay, then we do is interacting. We set that to false, and we can either do this in here the same way or do it right from the scripts. So we can remove this one, and then once we do FPS handler, handler reloading, we can actually make another fake animation that says reloading, but let's just say hands animator set bool is interacting true, and this will work as well. But we also need to know is interacting or hands animator get bool is interacting. This will also work as well. And it will be based on the timing of the animation and not of an arbitrary number. Okay, so now you can see I'm not able to just shoot once equipping, unless you want to do that, of course, like Tarkov does do that. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. Let's end this part, and then once we are back, we're going to do a lot more cool things. So I'll see you on the next one.